Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Cocaine.
Durfing.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie, the official K-State representative on the College Huddle. I'm your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef, Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt Marchesini. Before we dive into the episode, and tonight we will be covering a few things, but first and foremost, we will be talking football schedule release for the Big 12 Conference slate, which was announced today as we're recording this Tuesday, February 4th. But before we dive into the episode, we first want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Annie Mae's Parlor. This Twist Off Coors Light stubby bottle is brought to you by Annie Mae's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street, right in the heart of Aggieville in Manhattan, Kansas. Annie Mae's, as you know, has been in business for 50 plus years and an absolute must-visit destination in Aggieville on game days and school nights alike. Matt, you're going to be in Manhattan. When are you going to Mays so you can meet up with some cokeheads?
Maybe Thursday night, maybe Friday night.
You don't know when you're going to run into Fireball Matt at Annie Mae's. It could happen at any point in the next 4 to 5 days. So
it could.
You just make a point to go visit your auntie. And as always, they feature a wide variety of craft cocktails, draft beers, and everything in between, along with entertainment like live music, comedy, and all sorts of other events every single week. Check out their website, www.antimaze.com, to get a list of their upcoming events like Trivia Smackdown happening tomorrow, Wednesday, February 5th. You got Mighty Fine Jam Night on February 6th, Thursday night. So, yeah, maybe Matt will be at Mighty Fine Jam Night. Who knows? Maybe he'll be at Boot Hill Jazz Night on February 7th. That's Friday night. And that's featuring Dr. Goins Jazz Monsters. So that's going to be a fun thing happening there. And then Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. If you will be watching the big game at Annie Mae's Parlor, they are also doing a book swap from 2 to 5 p.m. Central Time. I believe that's right before kickoff. So enjoy taking some new books, bringing your old books if you would like to exchange those at the Parlor. So you know them, you love them. Check them out. AnnieMaze.com, or visit them at 616 North 12th Street, and be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. All right, guys, last week we were doing some watch-along action for the K-State Iowa State women's game. This week we're going to talk about hoops later. It might be on a separate pod. We'll get to that at some point. But first and foremost, we want to talk football schedule release. I guess just what were your initial thoughts on the schedule release? And then we can kind of go game by game here and talk about which week we're playing which opponents.
Go ahead, Matt. I mean,
yeah, what if I have the same thoughts as you and I stole them all?
That's fine. We have great minds, so great minds.
We do have great minds. I'm excited about the schedule. I thought the construction of it gives us some opportunities, especially in some of the heavy parts of the season, to take advantage of a bye week. Maybe we can learn to take advantage of a bye week in 2025. I'm excited. The last game of the year will be against a Big 8 foe in Colorado. That should be a really fun game right around the Thanksgiving holiday, as usual. There's definitely some concerns. I think the month of November is going to provide some really big challenges to this team, especially with two away games in consecutive weeks. But I'm really excited. I think it provides a lot of opportunities for this team to learn and grow through the season, especially with some of the teams that we're going to play early on. Thinking from a Big 12 play perspective, UCF starting off, the Big 12 home schedule with UCF, just like we did in 2023. UCF will be kind of up and coming this year, but, you want to get off at least from a home perspective in the Big 12, on the right foot. So I think the schedule is pretty attainable. I know we'll talk about maybe what our record predictions are a little bit later, but compared to what I saw, on Twitter from some inaccurate Dumbos out there from a schedule perspective, I like this one a little better.
Use the singular of that, not the plural. There was one Dumbo, and he's underneath me on the screen.
We're just simply trolling, baby. We're just putting information out there, just having a good time. That's all we do. It's every year, and I get the same people every year. And it's fine because it's just for funsies. It's all funsies. The schedule, incredibly balanced. I think that's the first thing that I think of. I don't think there's, like Matt brought it up, November is the first real stretch where we're away. That one's going to be tricky, but by that time you kind of know exactly what teams you're playing. You've got film. It's not you're not going to really get tripped up by something unexpected. I also like the 3 bye weeks. I think I like that from a health standpoint from the team, not having to deal with the grind of a 6 or 7, 5 or 6 week stretch where they're just playing game after game after game, even if it's with the travel and all that. I think it's great that we had the buys. Matt brought it up, the end the season on a Big 8-0 and opening the season on a Big 8-0. I like that a lot. It's a real storyline there for me. Neutral site in Ireland. We've got to get it done. And that game for me, because of the schedules and the way they're shaped up and who each of these teams are playing, Iowa State versus Kansas State, I think that game could kind of, you could be in the driver's seat if you think about it. Iowa State's schedule is, we said the same thing last year about K-State where we thought these teams would be easier, but there's always that surprise team that might be later on the schedule that could really, really, really bite you. Similar to what Arizona State did to us this past season. But I think both of these schedules, Iowa State's and Kansas State's, are shaping up to where they can take advantage and make their way to Arlington if they take care of business, especially in that first week. What else did I like? The one game that I'm thinking is the one asterisk where it's like, that one I think is going to be tough no matter what, is Baylor. Because the way, if you look at Baylor's schedule, there could be a chance where they're, 2-3, 1-4 maybe, or they could be undefeated and you're going into Waco with a really hot team or a really desperate team or a team that's defeated that just doesn't, throw caution to the wind, that you're going to have to really make your season in Waco. So I think that game is the highlight for me.
Yeah. I think it would benefit the listeners and viewers if we go through the schedule. I'll go ahead and throw it up on the screen here for those who are watching this live. Well, we're not live, but watching this on the tele. Let me pull up the grid. So we got the schedule grid here. K-State opens up.
Well, yeah, schedule for ants.
This is it's a big matrix. This is the highest I could blow it up. Thanks Big 12 for making this a really low quality image. But K-State opens up conference play in week 0, as we all know, in Dublin, Ireland. That's not news to anybody. We all knew this was happening for like 2 years now. So Iowa State neutral site, week 0. Then they come home for 2 games back-to-back weeks. So there's no bye in between week 0 and week 1 as a fun note for everybody listening to this. Not typical, I don't think. So you'll go week 0 straight to week 1, week 2, week 3. You've got North Dakota and Army back-to-back home games in weeks 1 and 2. And then you go away to Arizona. You're going to be playing that game in Tucson in week 3. Then bye week number 1 hits at that point. What do you think about these first 4 opening games and kind of how they lay out in the schedule here for K-State?
Well, I will say this. I anticipated that this was going to be the case, especially playing week 0. And we already had an idea as to when the first 3 non-conference games were going to be. So my anticipation was going to be we were going to get a bye week after the first 4 games of the season. The first 4 games give you a really good litmus test of playing in a, number one, an unnatural environment in Ireland. Obviously, for week 0, you're going to get a North Dakota team, which I don't have much to necessarily say about North Dakota, other than you have an FCS team coming in. Army, obviously, they had a really good season this past year, but they've lost a lot of people. And so you're playing an Army team, which, number one, is going to be a really good test, not just with the triple option situation, but giving your defense an opportunity to see a different look, especially with triple option, a much quicker offense that you have to really be on your toes for. And so it's going to be a good opportunity for the defense to go into go play an Army team that I think is going to test the defense. I'm not saying that, it's going to be a repeat of the Navy game from a few years ago, but I think is a really good test early on in the season. And then right before the bye week, you go on the road. So you're going to get a road environment early on in the season, just like the Tulane game. I anticipate Arizona, they have to reload a little bit. They lost some really big players from this past season, but they do bring back Noah Fifita. So early on in the season will be a good indicator, of being able to go on the road. How good is Arizona? Are they a team that is, going to battle in the Big 12, even though we're not necessarily playing them for, a conference game, but, is this a team that's going to show some improvement early on in the season? Or, is K-State going to, potentially be 3-0 going down to Tucson? That could be a big game too. So I wasn't surprised with the first part of the season, having the bye week right in September. But each game is going to provide a little bit of a challenge, and a different challenge that prepares you for Big 12 play going into October and November, when you're really trying to determine if you're a conference, championship game hopeful or not.
Yeah, for me, I don't think necessarily playing Army is going to prepare you for anything that you're going to see in the Big 12, but I think it's more fan service. I think it's going to be fun to see a military program in Manhattan. It would not be right if that's not Fort Riley Day. I mean, obviously it's a little early in the season, but that would be a nice little token to the fan base if that's Fort Riley Day. Show a little respect to our uniform brethren that we're playing. Hopefully you can get out of there with a dub. But I don't like military schools necessarily playing in regular season 4 games that matter. And, these games, like the military games, throwing a wrench into your season when aspirations are college football playoff. If you can get that automatic bid, I mean, it's not going to affect your Big 12 season, but playing a military school, they play a different style of football. Injuries can happen, all that sort of stuff, and you don't like seeing it. But the rest of it, North Dakota, shout out to Easton Kilty. He's not there, so I don't have any issues with playing North Dakota and coming out with a W. And the Arizona game, like Matt mentioned, they're retooling, but they still have a threat at quarterback. And that game can, at home, we saw what they could do at home last year. They don't have necessarily the receiving weapons that they did last year, but it's still a scary team. I would imagine that's going to be a night game, probably super late in the evening, because Arizona in August is probably 400 degrees. So I doubt we're playing that during the day. So it's going to be a souped up. I don't know what Arizona's schedule. I can't really see it, but I think they should be undefeated. I mean, they should be 2-0.
Revenge game.
Yeah. So
no receiving weapons. Chef saying we got Trace Spivey there now.
Yeah, but we'll see. Let's see if he's even playing. I don't know, but it will be fun to see. Yeah, I mean, that's another aspect. Good call out, Bob. I mean, just
Gunnar Maldonado revenge game as well.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. Those first 4 games, if you can come out of those unscathed, you're thinking of this season broke down into what would you say, thirds almost? I'd say thirds, really. No,
yeah.
I don't even know how you would do that, because that Iowa State game being that's a I guess you could do quarters.
Yeah, I mean you've got it's kind of quarters.
4, 3, 2, 3. Yeah, I mean that's I'm these first 4 games so pivotal. Like I said, the Iowa State
Yeah.
game is just, it doesn't even need a reasoning. Obviously, it's Farmageddon. It's gonna be huge. I'm telling you, I'm so excited for this Farmageddon. This is probably the most anticipated one I can think of, probably since Brock Purdy's last year.
Yeah, Iowa State coming off of a Big 12 title game appearance, coming out of, their first 10-win season ever in program history. And, K-State just being K-State, going out, winning 9 games as we do. So I'm not going to lie, that Army game does scare me, especially given the season they just had.
I don't think we'll lose, but I just don't like.
They're losing a lot of players.
Their running back went to Arizona State.
But ultimately, that type of game is, number one, typically low scoring because there's a limited number of possessions. Army is a team that's going to, try and hold the ball for, 8-9 minutes possessions at a time. It's going to be a challenge for the defense just from a speed perspective and understanding your assignments. Obviously, that type of game is not preparing you for Big 12 play from a schematic perspective, but it's preparing you to, from the defensive side, understanding and being confident in the assignments that you have on the field. So there's a lot that I think defense will learn in a game like this that can help them in Big 12 play, just from a player perspective. But it's, obviously we're not playing a triple option team in Big 12. So you have to take, you have to take these challenges in different ways. I guess
I could see the focus aspect in that game where, Kleiman in the press conference is really hammering the attention to details, like you're saying, where it's, you're not trying to look ahead to Arizona, who is in your conference, but you've got a team that you've got to be 100% locked in, or you're going to be looking silly out there trying to defend the option. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. And if they can grasp that, where they're having to, buckle down on a quarterback that's willing to run it 38 times, they can get through this season. They can get through it, baby. Let's go.
And to just for those listening and watching, there are 10 games in the Big 12 on the schedule again this season. That Arizona game was scheduled prior to them joining the conference. I believe that is another non-conference conference game with Arizona. So this will be the second straight year that you've had that game not count towards the conference stage, just as a heads up for everybody.
Are we going to do the same thing the next 2 years? Because I think we have Colorado on there, don't we?
We have Colorado on the schedule for 25 or 26, 27, I believe. I'm not mistaken.
It might be a little later, but I know we have Colorado. I don't know if they ever canceled that game. Like, I don't know if they ever cut those games off or not.
No, it's Washington State. We don't have Colorado as a non-conference opponent anymore.
Arizona is still, though. I was just looking at
Arizona.
So that is confirmed to be another non-conference conference game. So you are stuck with 10 Big 12 games on your schedule, which I think if you're looking at these first 4 games, I don't know that you could be better prepared for Arizona as a non-conference opponent or for conference play, given that Army was a 10-win team this season. They're a pretty solid team. They are losing talent, but they're a well-coached team, and they're a service academy team, which we all know can be tricky. If we remember the last bowl game in the last game that we played against the service academy team, which I think we all do. But you've got Iowa State in the first game of the season. That's a very good Iowa State squad that's returning a lot of good talent as well. And North Dakota, granted, that's a rivalry game for Coach Kleiman from his North Dakota State Bison days, but North Dakota is no slouch. They're in the Missouri Valley, which is the SEC of FCS, as we all know. So I think that's going to be a pretty solid start to the schedule, and it's going to be a good amount of tests for this team. It's definitely not going to be an easy, Bill Snyder versus, Eastern Washington type of situation, right? It's going to be a pretty salty schedule with, you're flying 1,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean for one game, and at least 800, 900 miles down to Tucson, Arizona for another game in that stretch. So it's going to be fun to watch. And I think this team will be tested for that next stretch of games. So week 4, you've got your bye. Week 5, you are versus UCF. So the University of Central Florida Golden Knights are coming back to Manhattan. And it's going to be a fun matchup there against the Fighting Scott Frosts. Will Scott Frost wear a hoodie? I think it's probably going to be too warm, but I don't know. You've got at Baylor, which I think all three of us probably have this game circled just based on how Baylor finished their season this past year. Granted, not a great showing in that Texas Bowl matchup against LSU, but technically they finished above us in the conference standings this past season. And Dave Aranda's got the T-shirts saying "We pay players, come to Baylor." That's going to be a fun matchup, I think. So you've got that one kind of sandwiched right in the smack in the middle of the schedule. And then you're turning around and playing a TCU team that also, I think, exceeded expectations this past year. A team that coming off of a 5-7 season 2 years ago, the last time we played them, when we had the Avery Johnson starting at wide receiver game, which was a fun little memory I have of that game, and probably the only one I have of that game, if I'm being honest, other than winning. And I don't really know what this TCU team is going to look like. I haven't really followed them because we didn't play them last year. So this is the next stretch. So let's hear your thoughts on those 3 games: UCF, at Baylor, and then versus TCU.
UCF catching the shaft. I mean, didn't they? I mean, don't we owe a return to Orlando? Because the last time we played them, I mean,
yeah,
next year.
Oh, okay, so I mean, but it's funny that we've gotten them 2 years in a row in Manhattan, or not in a row, but 2 years.
Yeah.
Coming to Manhattan, and we haven't had to return visit to Orlando yet, which is funny to me. They're up in the air. I mean, it's a new era, kind of, with Scott Frost coming back, and we'll see what that program looks like, what their identity is. That's I don't know, who do they have on their schedule. They've got some garbage: Jacksonville State,
North Carolina.
Oh damn! They got the Belichick.
That's North Carolina A&T.
No, look at their next game, UNC.
Yeah, they're right before they play us.
Right before they play us.
Yeah, it's for ants, but yeah, Bill Belichick. The North Carolina plays 2 Big 12 teams in their non-con, which is, I think, very hilarious. And Big 12 can really send a statement to those Tar Heels and Bill Belichick, like, welcome to college football, son. But who knows? And UCF, I think they'll handle business for those first 2 games. That UNC game is going to be up in the air, so they'll still be fighting for things. They'll probably have an identity. They'll put a lot of stuff on tape, which will be really fun for us to flex our muscles, open kind of our Big 12 play at home. I mean, people aren't talking about it because, the neutral site game, but we are opening at home, which was always K-State always opens on the road or whatever, but UCF we should handle that one. And then it's I think it's the big game, man. I think it's going to be a real pivotal. It's like, to shout out to my boy Scott Wildcat and the Bosco's boys, his infamous swing game. I think this is the swing game for this schedule, and that is at Baylor in Waco. They'll probably be wearing all mustard yellow, and I'm going to hate looking at that game visually. But, man, when was the last time we went to Waco? Was it COVID?
2020.
Oh, no, we went there for the Big 12 title season.
All right, no, it was 22.
22, yeah. 22,
yeah.
So, I mean, we got to get that one. And then TCU, I think Josh Hoover, they're going to be slinging the ball around, but they're going to be in a world of hurt. Their schedule is not kind at all. I mean, UNC, they've got an SMU team that is probably going to be salty again this year. They're not going to be, I mean, they could be in a world of hurt, us going and then coming to Manhattan. So, I mean, this 3-game cluster right here it's got some highs and it's got some lows. You've got to handle business at least 2 of those. In at least 2 of those, you've got to handle business.
I mean, I think everybody is going to be circling the Baylor game. I am almost wondering, there's a lot of hype for Baylor after the season they had. Isn't this the same hype that we were talking about last year about West Virginia?
Yeah,
Like-
it could be. It
like-
could be.
West
Yeah, I mean, I
Virginia. West Virginia came off a
Neil Brown saved his job. Yeah.
good year. They had good quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing some similarities.
A lot of correlate.
I'm seeing some similarities, and I'm not saying Baylor could be really, really good this year, and it starts with a quarterback, right? You have a good quarterback. But as much as we're going to be circling this game, it does make me think, hey, I might take a step back a little bit on Baylor. If they beat Auburn first game of the year, hey, they're there might be something there.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned TCU. I think TCU is going to be an improver year with Sonny Dykes this year. Obviously, they had a pretty good season, and they have a quarterback in Josh Hoover who's really good. They have some replacing to do with some guys that they lost on the team, but that's a game I'm glad to have at home. I would rather play TCU at home than on the road.
Yeah.
The UCF game, I don't even know who UCF is going to be at quarterback this year. It's very funny. I don't know who Scott Frost has brought in as a quarterback.
I think you could say that about I think that's like one of the only few teams on our schedule that is like that. Maybe
Correct.
Oklahoma State.
I was going to say Oklahoma State. Utah's got Devin Dampier coming in from New Mexico, who's a really good player. But
I guess Colorado too.
Yeah, I'm expecting a Liberty guy for Colorado. But anyway, the three games here, you have two at home. You want to obviously start kind of as I said before, starting off Big 12 home schedule. With UCF, I think is a really good team to start with, especially with a lot of questions that UCF has. And from another thing with Baylor, I would rather play Baylor early on or close to early on the season than in the last part of the season, because we saw. They started very poorly this season, rolled off a good streak of wins kind of towards the end. So is Baylor the swing game on the schedule? If I look at this schedule, probably. But because I can't put a swing game of like at Utah, it's too late. I think that's going to be I think playing at Utah is going to be a very tough game.
You can make it a swing game. I mean, if you think it's pivotal that game wins you or gets you eliminated, I mean, that's definitely a swing game.
We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So the second bye comes in week 8. Then this is the game that I probably honestly have circled as like a pendulum game. You're at KU, and they're returning Jalen Daniels. They're returning some pieces. Everybody's talking about KU's transfer portal class. They're talking about the class they're bringing in. They're finally investing in some in-state talent and this and that. It's going to be 17 straight if you can pull that win off. I don't know how I feel about that one. Especially coming off a bye. And we all know Kleiman's record coming off of a bye isn't the best. So I'm worried about that one. You've got KU and then you're at Tech. Or no, you're versus Tech. So you've got Texas Tech at home in week 10. So you've got bye, 2-game stretch, and then another bye. So takeaways from this next 2-game stretch at KU and Lawrence, presumably, if the stadium's finished by then, and then versus Tech the next week.
Yeah, they'll have that stadium already christened. So, I mean, they'll have 4 games previous to ours in that stadium. So we'll kind of get a feel of what the atmosphere is like at the stadium. Is it too big? In the bird cage. It'll be fun. I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere. They'll really be pumped for this one. I think it's going to be interesting to see what their offense looks like without, arguably the best player to ever come through KU's football program, maybe minus Gale Sayers. Golly, Jalen Daniels, can he Superman this team? I don't really know exactly what their roster looks like. Do they have the offensive line? Do they have all the skill pieces that they're losing in the wide receiver core? These are some really, really big pieces that they were betting a lot. They were pushing all their chips in on this last season just for it to, basically crash and burn. So what do they have in store for us here? I don't think it's going to be pretty for them. I think we handle that game. I'm not too nervous. I'm kind of feeling back in like when we were getting close to double digits where we were just handling them easily. I feel like that's where we're going to be at. But then, after that, having Texas Tech is kind of that kiss of death where it's like two teams that you've got incredibly long win streaks versus in back-to-back weeks, one on the road, going back home to play Texas Tech. It's going to be weird. I'm anxious about that Texas Tech game because they're similar to what KU did last year, not necessarily with the homegrown, but with the transfer portal, going all in on this season. Who's going to be quarterback? Probably Baron Morton, I would imagine. I don't know, but they're pushing all their chips in, and this is, like you said, a prove-it year for what who did you just say was an approve-it year? I can't remember. No, you were saying Baylor was – yeah. No, TCU was an approve-it year. Sonny Dykes is an approve-it year.
Everybody's an approve-it year.
Joey McGuire. I mean, this is have they been progressing? I would say they have been progressing, but they lost a lot of stinker games last year that they shouldn't have lost, that they had leads in. Let's see if they can rebound, but they are going to have an ultra-talented transfer team. And we saw what Colorado could do with a transfer team. Can Joey McGuire do the same kind of magic? I don't know, but it's going to be fun because it's going to be in Manhattan. That might be I was going to ask this after we got to the thing, but this game for me in particular, is this because the TV partners that we have, is this a TNT kind of game?
Texas Tech?
Yeah. A prime TNT kind of game. I'm thinking. No, I'm serious. Because that was like when I saw like the TV partners. Obviously, we have ESPN, ESPN Plus. We've got the Fox. We've got all that stuff. But there's also that True TV and TNT. They're going to be looking for things to put on the. I don't know if that's because there's not too many Friday, Thursday games in the Big 12 this year.
I don't
So
know.
I don't know if there's any. I don't know, but what I'm saying is they're going to want the inventory, and it just feels like this kind of game because if you look at where we're at, there's only 2 teams that have buys that week in the Big 12. A lot of teams are playing, so I mean, all the inventory's got to go somewhere. I'm thinking we're going to be on TNT that week, brother. It'll be fun. I think
is Charles Barkley going to do the comp like the
Dumbo's back
studio? It's going to be
Dumbo's back.
Why?
It's going to be
it's so stupid
Charles
to think about. Is this game going to be on TNT? We're not going to know until 2 weeks before that game where that game's going to be on.
Well, I'm just putting it out in the universe, brother. I just want you to use your
put
doodle
Saturday night ESPN on your that means it's going to be a big game. They're not putting a big game on TNT if both teams are.
Wait, didn't they have a TNT game for the college football playoff?
They had two.
Yeah. See what I'm saying?
But it was an ESPN crew, which
ESPN produced
like Dusty
it.
Dvorak.
Yeah, ESPN produced
that was
it.
weird.
Anyway,
KU.
2 years ago, they played a third string quarterback and almost beat us. Like, I don't think in any way this is going to be a situation where we're winning this game by 21 points. Now, obviously, there's a lot that okay, I'll absolutely take that bet. KU's schedule is going to be interesting. Obviously, going on the road to Missouri and bringing back the border war, which will be really fun as a casual fan to watch that.
I got that one written down right
in
here.
reality, looking at their Big 12 schedule, the 4 games that they have prior to us, they could easily go 3-1 in those games. Because I'm definitely high on Texas Tech. So KU could be in a situation where they're 3-1 in the conference going up against us and hosting us in Lawrence. So it will be interesting to see how KU's season starts off. We thought that their season was going to start off, pretty well this year, and you lose to UNLV at home and you lose to, Illinois on the road. I don't
Best
see them.
5-7 team in the country.
I don't see them losing to Fresno State, and I don't see them losing to Wagner. So they could have a pretty strong record, hosting us in Lawrence. And then, as you said, the Tech game. I think Texas Tech has some potential to be one of the top teams in the conference this year. But in reality, they have to put it together. They bring in the players, but it doesn't seem like Joey McGuire has put all the puzzle pieces together yet. I thought they brought in somebody, or, didn't they bring in Micah Hudson and then he left, or something like.
He's like taking a time off away.
He's taking time off. Okay, away from football.
Mental health it is important. So
okay,
don't make fun of him, Matt. Okay,
I didn't know. I wasn't making fun of him. I'm just saying. It'll be interesting. They have a strong transfer class from the defensive side. Can Joey McGuire put that together? The one other thing I'm going to mention is if the aspirations that we are all going to have of this team come to light, Chris Kleiman's going to have to absolutely take away the demons of the bye week. That's 100%. I mean, 100%.
He took care of that last year, didn't he?
No.
We had 3 buys and he won one of them.
He lost the Houston game.
Okay, that was bad.
We had 2 buys.
Yeah. 2 buys.
We lost the Houston game.
We went 1-2.
We went 1-1.
1-1.
1-1.
Whatever.
Yeah.
His record against teams when they come off a bye is not amazing by any means.
I don't think that's a thing.
Oh, okay. We'll look it up. Anyway, 11-1.
I'm saying I don't give it any credence.
If you think this team's going to go 11-1 or better, 10-2 or better, they're going to have to come off a bye week and win in Lawrence. And they're going to have to come off a bye week after Arizona and take care of business at home. And they're going to have to come off a bye week and go to Oklahoma State and win on the road.
House of Horrors.
Like at a stadium where we lose every year. So he's going to have to extradite these demons a little bit with these bye weeks. If we anticipate this team is going to be in the running for a Big 12 championship this year.
Yeah. I could not agree more. And that's a big reason why I don't know that we're going to beat that KU team, but you've got your next, you've got your third bye week during week 11, and then you're at Oklahoma State, Stillwater, the House of Horrors we've all talked about a number of times. Last time we played in Stillwater, we had that Will Howard game where we just kind of inexplicably fumbled the bag, and it was just one of the most bizarre games I've ever witnessed on a Friday, first Friday of October, which is when that game should always be played. But
I like that.
I do too. And then you've got at Utah week 13, a team I don't know that we've ever played Utah. I'm going to check Winsipedia real quick, but we certainly in living memory have not played Utah. And certainly not on the road, not at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Yeah, no previous matchups. This will be the inaugural matchup against the Utah Utes between K-State and Utah. So that's going to be a tough travel week going to Elevation in, Salt Lake City, Utah, coming off of a tough matchup against Oklahoma State. Doesn't matter how good or bad Oklahoma State's going to be. That's always going to be a game that Gundy's going to give you his best shot. And that's a game that goes back almost 100 years at this point.
Unless they're 3-6,
which is also a likelihood. We don't know. They've had some staff changes, some roster turnover, I would imagine. And
they were just as bad last year with a terrible record and gave BYU all the hell that they could take. And if it wasn't for like some kind of Mormon miracle,
and they beat Arkansas at home.
I don't know. I mean, Arkansas was really bad too, but
they made a bowl. They made a bowl though.
They made a bowl and they beat a college football playoff team. So it was 2007 all over again. But anyway, that's week 13 is at Utah, and then you come home, final game of the season. Not what I would have anticipated. I thought, if anything, the KU game was going to be the last game of the season for rivalry week, and no. Instead, they throw a little bit of a curveball there. We play the Colorado Buffaloes, a Big 8 foe, going back to, I think, 1949 is when they joined the conference at that point. And a game that hasn't been played other than last year. They haven't played at Manhattan, I think, for 15 years or something like that. It's been a while. I want to say it was 2010.
It's been a while.
So it's been a while, and we're playing Colorado last game of the season. So the last 3 game stretch at Okie State, at Utah versus the Buffs. Let's round it out. What do you think of the home stretch entering what could be a Big 12 title berth at the end of the season there?
Why does a Big 12 suck at rivalry week?
It's been bad for
I don't
15
understand.
years, too.
I don't.
Ever since these original teams left the conference in 2010, 2011, it's been shit.
There's this thought process I feel like of they want to backload some of these games, which is whatever, but you got to think about who you're competing with too. Like the SEC and the Big Ten are also doing rivalry games the same week. So why not continue? I mean, why is Baylor not playing TCU this week? Why are we not playing KU? Why is BYU not playing Utah? All this stuff. It just, I don't understand the thought process by the conference to try and embrace some of the rivalries and put them all the last week, like every other.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. Big 12 is probably the newer conference in terms of all these different teams joining the conference. The Big 10, every single week in the Big Ten, it seems like Iowa or Minnesota is playing a rivalry game for a trophy. So it's similar to what we're doing where we have Iowa State, littered throughout and the KU littered throughout. It's an Oklahoma State littered throughout. These are what we would consider Big 8 rivals. And the Big 12 is not really a trophy rivalry conference like the Big 10 is.
Doesn't mean it can't be, though.
No, I'm not saying it can't, but to
even
try
the
to
SEC
pigeonhole.
made up random rival. They played for the Mayor's Cup between South Carolina and Missouri because the towns that they're located in are named the same thing.
But what I'm saying is you can't just pigeonhole. You can't pigeonhole the last week and say, hey, that's when the rivalries have to happen. I mean, we've been playing rivalry games throughout the season. I mean, the rivalry is what it is. I mean, I don't think rivalry week is necessarily that because there's rivalry weeks throughout the season.
Okay. You're such an old.
Arizona State, the only rivalry game that week. That's like a traditional rivalry between two teams that legitimately fucking hate each other.
Yeah. You're wrong. You're wrong. Just
I'm sorry.
Just take the L.
No,
anyway.
When you look at these team schedules too, Matt, to your point, when you think about some of the potential matchups you could have for a rivalry week, I mean, you've got Baylor and TCU, like you already mentioned. That's a protected rivalry in the conference. They're not. That's the one matchup that those two teams are playing all 4 years of this first 4 years of this iteration of the Big 12. You got Utah and BYU, which I think traditionally has always been played on a random weekend, but why not lean into that instead of making Utah go to KU and have BYU play UCF? Like, there's no crossover with either of those matchups. You could have Colorado play Iowa State that week because that is a game that is on both of those teams' schedules. Oklahoma State could play Tech that week. Like,
when I think of rivalry week, I think Iowa State and Colorado, Ohio State, Michigan. Fucking those are in the same cloth as those rivalry weekend games. Like, get out of here. I mean, it's just.
I'm not saying they're in the same cloth, but it doesn't mean that you can't try to lean into the fact that Iowa State and Colorado have been playing each other since the 1940s. I mean, why wouldn't you try to lean into that?
I think the bigger grievance,
random weekend that makes no sense.
I think the bigger grievance is that we actually have games that are not going to get played in the Big 12 that aren't protected rivalries, like you said. We will miss a season. I mean, we'll miss a season where we're not going to get Iowa State on the on the schedule. So I think that's a more bigger grievance rather than it not being rivalry weekend. The hell with rivalry weekend, in my opinion. I think as long as you're playing the game, that is when rivalry weekend is.
Man, this is
1-0. What's next?
This is a trip. Stillwater, tough place to play. Oklahoma State may not be playing for anything, but even so, it's a tough place to play for us. You have to go on the road and get a win there. The Utah game is the one that's kind of up in the air for me. Utah probably going to be picked fairly high in the Big 12 this year.
Don't they have odds out on FanDuel and stuff?
I thought they were in the top
Okay.
5 for odds.
Oh, probably. I would imagine.
I don't know what Utah is going to be this year. Ultimately, that is also another tough place to play. Even, from a Utah perspective, they have a great fan base that always shows up. It's going to be a very tough game, especially if we are 10-1 going into that, or 9-1 going into that game. Who knows? And then Colorado at home, as I said before, love playing Colorado last game of the year. A Big 8, team that you're playing against. Obviously, Dion will bring ice to that game as well for the last week of the season. So I imagine it'll probably be in a good time slot no matter what.
That's a ratings play, 1,000% by the conference by putting that matchup together.
Yeah, I that is something that I wasn't surprised. Colorado, if they were going to be put on the road, they were going to be put up against BYU, or who else did they have? BYU on their schedule, Iowa State.
And if you notice who Colorado has right before us, they also play Arizona State.
They play Arizona State,
when
yeah.
you think about the teams that they're trying to get those Dion eyeballs, it makes sense how they're lining that up.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not surprised with that. I mean, the last 3 games are going to be very tough. You hope to not have a repeat of 2024 for your November. That's for sure. And you don't have there isn't a Cincinnati game in there to kind of make things better.
No.
It's ultimately, I think all those games are going to be tough. So I don't know. It's the worst, by far the worst stretch for us, I think, are those 3 games.
I agree. I mean, those 2, it's just because how the schedule was so incredibly balanced in non-con with the home, away, home, away, home, away, and you finally get a stretch where it's back-to-back road games. It's really going to test the mental, integrity of our team on how we can stay focused, how we can do all these things, because November is meaningful games. If you're at a certain point, these games are going to mean a whole heck of a lot with a whole bunch of pressure, and you're going to places that you haven't been, or places that you've had very little success. So Stillwater, no matter how good, like Matt said, how good the team is or what they're doing, it's still, you have to exercise those demons of getting through that Stillwater, mind frame. Pull out your best Skylar Thompson, Byron Pringle impersonation if you have to, and just do it. And then you got to survive Salt Lake City, which is going to be no easy task. And Colorado, who knows if Dion's got that motivational itch in him and he's got his team fired up and bought in and still trying to play those games, because their back into their schedule is, not as bad where it's, away, home, away, bye, home, away. But you got to get Colorado knocked out of there. So I'm fired up. I'm super fired up, but that November is going to be spooky season, not October. It's going to be November is spooky season. So
yeah. And it starts with the team wearing orange and black. So in Stillwater, where you've won 3 times in the last 30 years, and 2 of those times were before 2003. So that's great. We've won 1 time since 2003 in Stillwater.
There you
That was
go.
when Oklahoma State was
Really good.
top 10.
Yeah. Mason Rudolph was the one.
17.
That was the Byron Pringle game.
Yep, Byron Pringle, Skylar Thompson. Going nuts.
Yep. All right, gun to your head. Easiest stretch and toughest stretch. I know what Matt's toughest stretch is, so feel free to just reiterate that. But
I'll piggyback with Matt, where I think we're all saying the last 3 in November. That's going to be.
I think it's either that or it's that week 9, week 10, like the back-to-back games sandwiched between 2 bye weeks against KU and Tech, 2 teams that you've got the 16-game winning streak with KU. You've won 12 of the last 13 against Texas Tech. That's not going to be easy by any means. And It's
You
kind
just
of like
named off that we've beaten the hell out of them for, over almost 2 decades, and now it's hard. Get out of here. I have no
they're
respect for
both due.
KU.
They're both due. They're
There's no
both
such
due.
thing
I'm
as
sorry.
due. I don't
I'm
respect them. I don't respect Texas Tech. Let's go kick their asses.
All
That's
right, I'm gonna.
I would almost say that's the easiest, but I'm not going to, because I think if Baylor, I do have Baylor circled, but I just think that is the swing game. It's the one where I'm focused in, because it could change the season if you win or lose that. But I think that is the easiest stretch with UCF and TCU at home, and then Baylor, because of their schedule, they could be down bad. They could be down bad, and we could be looking at 3 straight losing, record teams in 3 straight weeks. So I that's where I'm going for the easiest.
Okay. Easiest stretch, Matt.
I'm actually going to say the first part of the season.
Okay.
Taking away the 2 games at home for the non-conference, and then you're going on the road to an Arizona team that I don't know if Arizona is going to be very good this year. And a lot of it is because I don't think Brent Brennan is going to get that team ready for the Big 12 play and everything. I also think playing Iowa State in week 0 is like the best case scenario for us.
Why is that?
Iowa State is a team that historically they're a little bit of a slower starting team to the season. It's a team that you don't want to play towards the end of the year. I mean, we've seen that the past 2 seasons. So playing them week 0, it's going to be a very difficult game, but it's going to be a very difficult game for both teams, because it's just a completely different environment from a preparation perspective that you're getting ready for. And I feel like it evenly matches these teams together. I think Iowa State is going to have Iowa State has some replacing that they have to do in some of their skill positions at wide receiver, and some defensive players as well. I think Iowa State's going to challenge for a Big 12 title this year, but week 0 against us, it puts us on an even playing field with them. I think it's going to be a super close game. I think that's the toughest game out of the 4, but I'd rather be playing them in the beginning of the year. So I'm going to say my easiest schedule stretch of it is actually week 0 to week 3.
Yep, I agree with that 1,000%. I would rather play them in game 1, week 0, than at the end of the season when it comes to that. What would you say is your way too early record prediction rather, for K-State going into this season? And I'll caveat it with overall record and then conference record. And if you want to get into the minutia of which games you have them losing, I've got mine on my end. So fire away, boys.
I want to be respectful to the Big 12 as a whole and say, we'll probably go 10-2 with 2 conference losses. But if I'm just like totally being disrespectful and just looking at this on paper, I'm not intimidated by any team on this schedule at all. I mean, they all got flaws. And K-State, I think that's the Big 12 in general this season. I think we kind of said that about the Big 12 last year, but realistically, the way it, laid out, there were some teams that were significantly better than everybody else, and K-State wasn't one of those teams. But I think this year, we are significantly better, or don't have the holes that a lot of teams do have. I think we could run this schedule, to be honest.
Ooh, I'm not as confident with that. I feel 11-1 just from a first kind of look.
You scoffed at mine, but you have 1 loss.
I think we're going to lose one of the road games. Utah. I mean, if Baylor is as good as they potentially think they are this year, Oklahoma State. I mean, I just think there's one of those road games that will trip us up. Unfortunately for the conference, I think there's going to be a lot of 2024 happening in 2025 with this conference. And I think it's going to be that You're going to have, K-State's probably going to be picked 4th or 5th, I'll bet, in the preseason poll.
Well, if we're going by FanDuel's odds to win, K-State plus 550, Arizona State plus 550.
Yeah, it's even.
BYU 700, Baylor 700.
Yeah,
KU plus 750.
A part of me thinks the preseason poll will be Arizona State, BYU. I think a Baylor or even a Texas Tech will be above us. So I see, 4th, 5th, we're going to get picked. I just think there's going to be a lot of parity in the conference this year. And what the conference really needs is a team that just completely dominates and steamrolls. Like you have to have a team that is gaining the respect week to week. Why not us? Because we're not playing Arizona State. We're not playing BYU. Some of the teams that we're going to perceive to be at the top of the conference, similar to, I don't know. I think 11-1. I think we're going to lose one of the road games in Big 12 play. And we're going to beat Iowa State in Ireland.
I'm the pessimist of the group, apparently, because we're going all the way to the floor of 10-2. I've got us losing not back to back. I've got us losing back to back coming off of a bye. So I've got us losing to KU. The streak is broken. They're going to be so stoked in the birdcage that night. And then I've got us losing at Oklahoma State. So those are the two losses I have on the schedule. You're going to finish 7-2 in the conference, and it's going to be another cluster at the top, I think. As much as I don't want that.
Just to throw a little perspective in this, similar to what the little media run that I had with the podcast network that we're with, where we're talking Heisman odds. We miss Sam Levitt, who is the leader in the clubhouse for Heisman in the Big 12 at plus 3,000. We do get Jalen Daniels, like you said, who is plus 4,000 to win the Heisman, and Avery Johnson is 3rd with plus 5,000. I think that's a little bit higher than his odds last year to win it. But I think I'm just not convinced with KU. I can't wrap my head around us losing to a KU team that got significantly worse.
Well, I do believe it, but we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for this episode. Stay tuned. We're going to have men's and women's basketball kind of recap and headlines discussion on an episode later this week, but that's going to do it for us tonight. Once again, shout out to our sponsor, Anti-Maze Parlor. Visit www.antimaze.com for a full list of their upcoming events. And if you're stopping by, whether to visit Fireball Matt or to just hang out, enjoy a craft cocktail or a draft beer, be sure to tell them that Cocaine Willie sent you. Additionally, we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle, which Chef just alluded to there. Follow them on social media at College Huddle. And last but not least, you can follow our show at Cocaine Willie on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram, or you can follow us on other social media individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini. Chef.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are all Coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
Let's ride.
Let's ride.